Hello, good morning, and welcome to Morning Brew. On this morning, it is Wednesday, the 17th of January, 2024. I'm Graham Hughes, and today is going to be the big showdown, the big kahuna burger, the vote on the third reading of the Rwanda bill. A bill that is set to put into law the fact that Rwanda is a safe country. Now, I can't emphasize this enough. Rwanda is not a safe country. Rwanda has been run by a member of the army of the actually an insurgency that used to be based in Uganda. He is a Tutsi rebel technically, and I'm not going to go into the whole history of what happened in Rwanda, but we know about the genocide which the Hutus perpetrated against the Tutsis after the prime minister of the country was killed in a plane crash in 1994. Paul Kagame took office in 2000. He has been in charge of Rwanda for almost a quarter of a century. And in that time, he has imprisoned opposition politicians. He has had opposition politicians taken out, and not for pizza. And we've seen refugees being actually murdered by the security forces of Rwanda for protesting about the lack of food. And we're going to have a bill going through Parliament today that is going to declare Rwanda a safe country unilaterally. You know, it's like making a bill to say the moon is made of cheese, and therefore it is. It's demonstrably wrong. And I can, Your Honour, if you just give me a little moment to, present my case in court, here is my case. Since 2022, we have taken 6 refugees. We've processed their claim, and they have been found to be genuine refugees from Rwanda. Now, have we taken any refugees from France? No, I don't mean they've come over here in boats. I'm talking about from the country of France, or Germany, or the USA, or Canada, or Australia, or New Zealand. No. We haven't taken any refugees from those countries because they are safe countries, and we don't take any refugees from them. So not only is this disgusting bill going to take innocent, vulnerable women and children and fly them halfway across the world to this Central African dictatorship of Rwanda, it's also going to mean that if you're fleeing Rwanda for your life, and believe me, having done it, the overland trip from Rwanda to the UK is not an easy one by any stretch of the imagination. But that aside, they're going to say, well, sorry, we're not going to take any more refugees from Rwanda because we have declared it a safe country. This is the world that we're living in. This is the country we're living in 2024. The French, and this, I can't stress this enough, the French authorities, the French government, offered to have us build a processing centre in France, in Calais. And in that processing centre, they could process the claims of refugees before they got in a boat. And what you can do is you can take their fingerprints, iris scans, photos, and then you process their claim. And then once that process is done, they either get a yes or a no. If they get a yes, we can give them a ferry ticket and they can come over on the ferry, no problem. If we say no, and they get in a little boat and come over here, after we've said no, we can deport them very, very quickly because we've already done the process. We've already said, sorry, we don't think you're a genuine asylum seeker. The French offered that, and we said no. And instead, as a deterrent to people coming over here in boats, instead of making it so that there's literally no point unless you've applied in France and work with the French authorities to maybe have a system that we used to, that we could actually take people back to France under the Dublin Agreement, which we were a signatory of while we were part of the EU, because it was an EU measure. Instead of using those facilities that were available to us, the government has spent over £250 million on a Central African country Can we call it reparations? Will that upset the gam-gams? We've paid in the last couple of years reparations of over £250,000, or at least promised to a Central African dictatorship that, although part of the Commonwealth now, was never part of the British Empire. So shouldn't Belgium be paying that money, for the crimes they committed in Rwanda? No? Okay, well, why are we paying it? Why are we paying that amount of money? That staggering amount of money? That is a significant chunk of a country whose GDP is around $11 billion a year. I mean, that's a significant chunk of change to that country. We've actually grown the economy of Rwanda by a significant percentage. We're not growing our own economy, and in fact, inflation has gone up to 4%. They thought it was going to go down. It's gone up again. And don't forget, inflation never stops. It's a bath filling up. It just means that it's filling up a little less fast than it was after Kwasi Kwarteng's and Liz Truss's kamikaze Tufton Street budget. At last, a true Tory budget, screamed the Daily Mail on the day. And our inflation went up to 11%. At last, that's what a true Tory budget looks like. It looks like economic disaster. Because libertarians have no idea how economics works. Although they might know a way of shafting everyone so they can make lots of money, but that's not really economics, is it? That's just crime, con job, Ponzi scheme, pyramid scheme, call it what you will. It's a swindle. And when you've got people like Jacob Rees-Mogg, who's made lots of money out of Brexit, who also moved Somerset Capital out of the UK, moved it to Dublin, in charge of stuff in this country. I mean, that guy was a minister. He was a minister in our actual government. This weirdo cosplaying his Victorian dad out of the Viz was a minister in our... Oh my God. Oh my God. And this is the caliber of people who are going to be voting today for the Rwanda bill, and in which the party that runs this country, that's 20 points behind in the polls and has been now for well over a year, has no chance of winning the next election. No, not a snowball's chance in hell. The best it can possibly hope for is a hung parliament, and even that looks unlikely. They are hanging on by their fingernails. And the most important thing to them isn't the fact that millions of people are having to wait for their operations or can't get hold of their prescriptions or can't get a dentist. No, that's not the important bit of all this. The important thing that we've all got to concentrate on right now is Rwanda, sending people to Rwanda, because that's going to stop people coming over in little boats. Actually, when we say you've got to make people go to Rwanda, there's the practicalities of all this as well, which is something that the Tories don't really do. The Tories are fantasists, and I'm not. I know I come up with a lot of ideas, but my ideas are always grounded in reality. So they talk about politics being the art of the possible. And I really do believe in that. I think, okay, here's a good idea. How do we actually go and do it? And I'm interested in the nuts and bolts of how it is done. And until I understand how it's done, the nuts and bolts, I wouldn't want to try and sell it to anyone as a concept, as an idea. And as a policy. The Tories aren't like that. The Tories don't look at a problem and say, what's the easiest, cheapest, and most moral way of sorting this out? They invariably pick the most expensive, the most immoral, the most disgusting way of possibly dealing with a particular problem. And they've made this thing so important to the essence of the party, to the soul of the party. Why? Have a think. Because they can't do anything else. They can't do anything about the fact inflation's just gone up again. They can't do anything about the interest rates not coming down. They can't do anything about the economy that hasn't grown for 17 years. They can't do anything about that. They can do bugger all about what's happening in Gaza, not that they'll probably want to because they're sick. They can't stop Russia invading Ukraine. They can try and help Ukraine. They can make noises about sending aid into Gaza. But the reality is This government is a lame duck government. Not because it doesn't have the numbers, but because it doesn't have the brain cells. It's got none of the ideas that you need to run a country properly. It's got none of the expertise that's needed to run a country properly. It's just a bunch of hooray Henrys promoted way above their station, way above their ability, for the fact that there's a barrel and it's not going to scrape itself. And we're seeing now the absolute dregs of the Tory party in charge of really important government officers. And officers that affect the lives of millions. And I think now we're seeing politics actually affect people more than ever before. More than ever before in my lifetime. Definitely. In the last 8 years, since that bloody Brexit vote that cleaved the United Kingdom in two. And I don't think that scar is going to heal for a very, very, very long time. Because we're always going to have that suspicion. Whenever you go and try and get your prescription and you can't because of Brexit, or you can't get your operation, or you've got to wait 18 months with a hip that is absolute agony, so much that you can't sleep, and thinking, well, I didn't vote for this, but my neighbour did, my uncle did, my sister did, the people down the road did, my colleagues did. And I can't see how we're going to be able to fix that deep-seated resentment that millions of people, including myself, feel in this country towards the people who were conned into voting for Brexit. Although there are some people out there who still think Brexit is a good idea. And just a little bit of fun for you. By the way, there's an open audition going on for UKIP at the moment. If you'd like to be the leader of UKIP, anyone can apply. You used to have to be a member for 3 years. Now anyone can apply. So I suggest you have a look on the UKIP website and see if you can become the next leader of UKIP and change it into a party that wants to rejoin the EU as its raison d'etre. Bit of French there. They won't like that. If Labour went 20 points ahead, I'll be worried, says Gary. The party economic competence, says Michael. Indeed. Did you hear the Tory peer on Sky this morning? First, safe country rubbish. Blame Blair for the state of the country and Labour for immigration. Burley, not a peep. That's pretty bad. That is pretty bad from Kay Burley. This idea that you've got to go to your first safe country, it's bullshit. It does not say that in either the UN Declaration of Human Rights, Article 14, or in the UN Convention on Refugees, either the 1951 Convention, or I think there was a 1968 Convention as well, which broadened the scope. But basically, we signed up to these agreements, these international agreements that said that if people are fleeing war, fleeing persecution, then we have a duty, a moral duty, to look after them in a way that we didn't in World War II. And I can't stress this enough. The Kindertransport with Nicholas Winton, I think there's a movie that's just come out about it. I mean, that's amazing. That's amazing that one man managed to do that. But at the same time, it's disgusting that their parents weren't allowed to come as well. We ripped children from their parents and left their parents to die in Nazi concentration camps because we didn't want to take Jews in this country, because there is a deep-seated mistrust of Jewish people in this country that runs through the psyche of the nation like Blackpool through a stick of rock. And you only have to scratch the surface, or maybe give a couple of drinks to someone who thinks they're very right on and left wing. And then it turns out, oh, you know what? The Jews control everything. Yeah. Okay, mate. So if they control everything, how is Israel such a mess? They can't even control their own country, mate. They can't even be safe in their own country. They've got a lunatic in charge of their own country. If they were manipulating things behind the scene, wouldn't they have someone sensible in charge who could actually make Israel a success story instead of the horror story that it is right now? If you were going to go and live in Israel, would you feel safe there right now? No. Then the project of Israel's failed. The whole point of Israel was that it would be somewhere that Jews could feel safe, and they can't. But, they've run everything, really, if you think about it. So yeah, the fact that we didn't take refugees from Germany and Austria and other countries before the start of the Second World War is a black mark against the United Kingdom, and something that we were deeply ashamed of, quite rightly, after the war. And that's one of the reasons why we signed up so full-heartedly to the UN Declaration of Human Rights and the 1951 Refugee Convention, because we looked at it and we said, never again. We're never doing that again. Well, here we are. We're doing it again. Demonizing people from other countries who are trying to escape persecution. And these people who say, oh, you should stay in the first safe country, what they're essentially saying is we should take no refugees whatsoever, unless they're from, I don't know, Ireland. That place where the GDP per capita has doubled in the last 17 years, whereas ours has actually gone down by 10%. There's going to be too many refugees from there. Plus, if you're Irish, you're not technically an alien in the UK. So there's that. Gary Arnold, thank you very much for the £2 super chat. That's really generous. Thank you. Christopher Bowl says, we must understand that Jewish people in 1938 were being forced to use people smugglers to try and escape Germany even after Kristallnacht. Yeah, exactly. And if you want to destroy the people smuggling gangs, you set up a refugee processing centre in Calais, or just in France, just anywhere in France, really. That's what you do. And that will destroy the gangs, because no one in their right mind will put their children on a boat knowing that they're not going to get into the country, or that they're going to be just sent back to the processing centre in France. Now, we do a deal. We set up a processing centre, and we say, right, we're saving people's lives here. This is really important. And obviously, we have to pay the French government for this, for this, but it's going to cost less than the £250 million that we've given, or we're going to give Rwanda. By the way, that number increases to 700 million. The best part of $750 million over the next few years, if this goes ahead. But yeah, we say to France, here's the deal. We set up a processing centre, and if anyone does try and get them across on the boat, we take them back to the processing centre. That's it. I'll still lay money on the gangs being run by Tories. Well, if I was oh my God, if I ran a people smuggling gang, I would totally vote for the Tories. If I was a terrorist, an international ISIS terrorist, and I wanted the UK to fail, I would vote Conservative and I would vote for Trump in America if I could. Because I know that those two things will destroy those countries from within. I don't need to blow anything up. They'll blow themselves up. Look at Brexit. Brexit has done more damage to the UK economy than the IRA ever did. It's killed more people than the IRA ever did. It's caused more suffering than the IRA ever did. And we did it to ourselves. I mean, wow. Good morning, Graham. Good morning, all. Hope everyone is very well. Oh, thank you very much, Daily Bells. It's very cold. Robin says, my house is on fire. Can I go stay with my sister in the next town, or do I really have to move with my neighbour in the first safe house? Yeah, indeed, Robin. It is just bananas, isn't it? But one of the things I talked about in my moment of truth yesterday is the ulterior motive behind all this. Because at the end of the day, they don't really care about people dying in the channel. They don't give a shit about that. Why would they? What they really care about is the fact that we've got human rights, and they're given to us by not just the European Court of Human Rights, but also by the UN Convention of Human Rights, which they want to defy. And they've told civil servants to ignore these rules that allow the last-minute injunction against flights, to ignore international law. That's what they're going to tell the civil servants. They're going to tell civil servants to possibly put themselves in a position where they could be pulled in front of an international court for breaking international law. Well, that'd be interesting, won't it? For what? So we can send people to Rwanda. They don't want to send people to Rwanda. They give a shit. They give a shit about the boat people. They don't give a shit about Rwanda. I reckon 99 out of 100 Tories couldn't even point out Rwanda on a map. In fact, that would be a really good... Femi, if you're watching this and you see some Tories, turn up with a map of Africa and say, can you point to Rwanda, please? Can you tell me where it is? I'd be amazed. I would be amazed. I'll be amazed if even the ministers who have been there, like Priti Patel and Suella Braverman and James Not So Cleverly, if they knew where it was, I would be amazed. But no, what the real play is here is they want to remove our human rights. Our rights, the rights of British people. This isn't really about refugees. It's about restricting our ability to complain when they F us in the A even harder than they already are. And they talk about the European Court of Human Rights as a foreign court. This pisses me off. It's not a foreign court. It's a European court. We are part of Europe. It's only a foreign court as much as the Supreme Court in Washington is a foreign court to someone living in Idaho. It's not. It's simply not. It is, if you are from Idaho, you can become part of that court. You can sit on that court. You can decide things on that court because it is your court for your continent, in our case, or group of countries. And don't forget, it was all the countries in Europe till quite recently, and then Belarus and Russia pulled out. And we're going to join them. We're going to join the ranks of Belarus and Russia. I always said when we were pulling out the EU or, the Brexit wars, I said, oh yeah, it'd be great being outside the EU. You can be more like Albania. It's always been my, top 10 things to do in my life. Let's be more like Albania. No. We'll be more like Switzerland or Norway. What, you mean those countries that are in Schengen? I mean those countries that have agreements with the EU for, part of to play part of the single market and the customs union to a certain degree. All right. Christopher says, I think we need international coordination on refugees. I want a UN coordinated camp in somewhere like Jordan or Libya, and every refugee can apply before any people smugglers get involved. Christopher, you're right. Do you want better? I think you should be able to apply for asylum anywhere in the world online. That's it. We have a system set up. And the way it would work is something like you would have a European system. Let's talk about the European system. So wherever you are in the world, you can register at a European consulate, embassy, high commission, as whoever you are. You prove who you are, your ID papers, we take scans of your eyes and fingerprints, so we've got all that on record. And you begin your application process. Now, in your application to an EU country or European country, you can stipulate your top desired country to go to, and you will explain why you want to go to that country. Maybe you've got family there, maybe you speak the language, maybe there's a historical tie from the fact that it was that country that colonized you as part of its empire many years ago. Whatever the reason is. And then there is a committee, a council in Europe that allocates refugees evenly around Europe based on population of the country and also the economy of the country, and also the needs of the country as well. So there's this idea, and it's quite a pernicious idea, that all refugees are rag-wearing goat herders. It's not true. Loads of refugees that came over from Syria were doctors and nurses and dentists, things we need. There were chartered accountants and teachers and architects and engineers, things we need, jobs we need. And so if you have a particular skill, if you have a particular talent, a particular qualification, experience, a particular profession, and a particular country, Germany, France, UK, needs that profession, you'll be fast-tracked to those countries. Because we'll say, look, we need more engineers, let's say, because we're working on rolling out. We need more electrical engineers because we're rolling out a system so that our energy grid is upgraded so we can deal with the number of electric cars we're going to have over the next 10 years, for instance. And then every electrical engineer who is fleeing from Eritrea or Yemen or Syria will have more of a chance of coming here. And it would be a much fairer system, but we need to work across Europe to make this work, because it's not fair on Greece and Italy that they're bearing the brunt of this and getting most of the refugees that are coming over in boats. It's not fair that the refugees are having to get into boats in the first place to come across the Mediterranean. They shouldn't have to do that. We need to sit down and start being sensible about how we deal with this. But also, we need to make the positive case for migration. We need to make the positive case for bringing people and inviting people and letting people in from other countries. which no one's prepared to do, not even Labour, which pisses me off. But there's such a positive case to be made for migration, because without it, our economy will never grow. And without it, we're going to have a lot of older people with no one to look after them. Our fertility rate at the moment is 1.5 in this country. For it to be a self-sustaining population, it needs to be at least 2.1. And yet, the Tories are saying to people who want to have more than 2 children, don't have more than 2 children, or we won't pay for anything. And people go, okay, well, I've got a good job at the moment, and things are going quite well. But there's no certainty in life anymore. There's no job for life anymore. And there's always that worry. What if I lose my job? My partner loses their job as well, and we need to claim benefits. And we've got 4 kids, and we only get benefits for the first 2. Okay, I'll tell you what. Let's just not have 4 kids. Let's have 2 kids, and if everyone had 2 kids, it would still be below the 2.1 fertility rate that we need. So we've got a choice here. We can either encourage people to have more children, which takes a long time and is very expensive because it takes 21 years to take someone through school and take them through university and give them a qualification that's worthy of getting a really top job. It takes 21 years, at least. 27 years, 28 years if you want to get a PhD. It's not like the best way of doing it. The best way of doing it is allow people to be born and grow up in other countries and come here. And we really need to be making the positive case for that, and the positive case for letting refugees into the country. We were quick enough to do it when it was Uganda, when it was Ukraine, weren't we? And do you know what's the most sickening of all? And I'll talk about this just before I jump into the chat. The most sickening thing of all is that we promised these translators and people helping the fixers, helping the British Army in Afghanistan. We promised them asylum in this country if the Taliban ever took over again. The Taliban took over again. And they fled the country into Pakistan. And now they're being returned to Afghanistan. And they're crying out for help to the British state that said that they would take them in, promised to take them in. Help us out, and we'll take you in. And we looked down on them and said, no. And now they're being taken back into enemy territory, back into Taliban-ruled Afghanistan, and being put to death. I mean, there's no nice way of putting this. We have sentenced people who assisted us in a war for 20 years to death. That's the reward you get. What signal does that show? What does that? If you're growing up in these countries around the world, looking at what the British do, are you going to help them when it's your turn? Are you going to join the Taliban? Indeed. Right. I'm just going to read a few of the chat, and then I'm going to very quickly do the bloody newspapers. I'm staring at the Daily Mail here. It's on the other screen. It's annoying me. Simon says, allegedly the Sea Peoples migrated from Crete in 1177 BC to Egypt, and Ramesses III settled them in Gaza, and they became the Philistines. Well, there you go. Our treatment of the people of Afghanistan was dire, absolutely. Problem is the UK doesn't have enough houses, and we can't build enough houses fast enough on the fact they will never be affordable for low-skilled migrants. We talked about this yesterday, didn't we? Housing. I've got a very simple solution to the housing problem. We bring in a use it or lose it scheme. Essentially, if you don't live in your house for more than 6 months of the year, or don't have someone living in your house for more than 7 months of the year, whatever you decide it to be, and you can prove that, the council compulsory purchase your house at below market value. Use it or lose it. That would open up many, many more rental properties, and some places will literally give massive discounts just to have someone living in the house so they don't lose the house. Do you see what I mean? That would be a simple way of dealing with things immediately, but more houses need to be built as well. But day one, if Labour got in and said, right, that's it, use it or lose it, that's the name of the game. And also tax the living crap out of second homes, third homes, fourth homes. The idea of buying to let, over, gone. That's what councils should do. Also, councils should be able to be private landlords so that they can develop an entire area and have some places in that, some houses that are people completely on benefits and their rent is paid by the council. And then other people who are there who actually pay money to the council and therefore have more money to build more homes. And also, there's a little thing of not many people talk about this, but there's billions of pounds locked away in pension funds for people working for the councils, for local government, for civil servants, and at the moment they invest in tobacco, firearms, alcohol, gambling, or the petrochemical industry, all the good stuff. Instead of doing that, let's invest in our housing. That's where the money's moved to, housing, because it's going to retain its value. It's a lot less volatile than investing in oil. It's affected by, wars in the Middle East or Houthis firing missiles at tankers. I mean, yeah. Anyway, buying a bunch of popcorn for election day for the whole house and watch the results come in. That's Benjamin. With me and Tansky and A. Thompson and others are just planning to get together and have an absolute massive piss up. But we're going to try and stream it. We're going to live stream it as the results come in. So please stay with us until then. And also, don't forget, Labour Socials, no intention of going anywhere. After the election, we're not going to stop. This isn't just so Labour get in. Well, I don't think we're going to have anything to say on whether Labour get in or not. It looks like they're going to. But we want to be here holding Labour to account and holding them to their promises and their manifesto, which hasn't been published yet. So I can't really hold them to anything yet. But when they do publish it, then you said you'll do this, do that. Do that thing that you said you were going to do. Quickly, very, very quickly, I'm just going to do the papers for 1 second. Now, will 60 Tory rebels sink PM's boat bill tonight? No, they won't. Even the dickheads who have left government, Leanne Thol and Brenda Clark-Smith, they've both said they're going to vote for it. So, yeah, I don't know what the whole rebellion thing yesterday was all about, but whatever. Top Tories quit in protest as Sunak sees off Rwanda rebels. It's important to stress they haven't quit as MPs, unfortunately. They haven't lost the whip. They're still Conservative MPs. They just left their positions as deputy chairs. Kate Moss is 50, and the Fujitsu boss has admitted liability. There's a thing about that on the Mirror. They knew the system was faulty at the time, as destroying lives and submasters. Some postmasters were sent to jail. Also, we've got a space minister who got the sun mixed up with Mars and thinks Jupiter is Saturn. Houston, we have a more one. Love it. The Guardian, their MP faces PM faces revolt on Rwanda as senior Tories quit. And Daily Express, obviously, with the come together on Rwanda plan, because all these newspapers, the Express and the Telegraph and the Mail and the Scum, they're all owned by foreign or non-dom billionaires who don't give a shit about anything but crushing the British people. Fujitsu bots, we will pay up. And Sunak suffers heavy blow as Tory Rwanda revolt swells. And this is about Trump celebrating his Iowa sweep before heading to New York for hearing. He only got like 59% of the vote, which actually isn't that good. It's not actually that good. I mean, he won, but 40% of the people who will be voting Republican, presumably, in the upcoming election, don't really want him. And so they voted for Ron DeSanctimonious or Nikki Haley instead. So there you go. And MP rocked by shock resignations over his Rwanda migrant. But I don't think anyone's like in shock. My heart can't take it. Okay, so I'll be back at 12 o'clock for Prime Minister's questions. And we'll be, we'll be doing that dance again. I've got more pop-ups this week, so please join us for that. I'll also be back with a moment of truth at some point today. And also, Phil will be back tomorrow for Morning Brew at 9:30. So please join Phil Morehouse for that, of A Different Bias. And if you're not already subscribed to Phil, please subscribe to his channel because it's really good. And if you go onto this channel's channel page, there's a group of people who are sort of mates of ours in the whole Labour social circle. And if you follow them as well, I'd be really appreciative. Or subscribe to them as well. Bye all. Keep warm if you can. Please, can we go back to the day of boring politics? That's the plan. Have you seen Keir Starmer? Come on. Okay. So thanks very much for joining us. And until next time, I'll say hello, good evening, welcome, and goodbye.